politics. Now, last week, we were very delighted to have on this show Runcorn and Helsby's new MP and Reform's newest MP, where she spent most of the time, it seemed, flirting outrageously with Peter Carville. And she said, I'd only come back if I enjoyed it. Sarah Pochin, MP, a very good afternoon.
I don't think I flirted outrageously.
Look at that map. Look at that map. That's Reform crazy. There's no other political party on that map behind you.
What can I say? What can I say?
You know, look at this. Sarah Pochin will give you the weather now for the United Kingdom. They are. Move the left arm.
It's Reform all the way.
Listen, thank you so much indeed for your time. I've been trying in the last 2 hours on a serious note to control myself because I don't think much winds me up as much as the weekend. It started, if you haven't heard the story, at my son's school, Lord Wandsworth College, where the BBC, some BBC radio guy was the guest of honour and proceeded to tell 1,000 pupils aged 11 to 18 that, you know, Donald Trump was a disgrace, net zero was the future, we should never have left, Brexit was a disgrace. I mean, literally unbelievable. And then it culminated in that vile punk band, Bob Vylan, standing up on stage. And you know, we've played the clip again and again, death to the IDF. I'd love to know your take on it. I know a lot of people were talking at Glastonbury about people were booing Reform. I just think they're all off their heads and are drunk the way they follow this stuff. But the two-tier view of this is beyond, to me, beyond... the reality of this is so awful, Sarah, to think that, you know, Lucy Connolly, whose words I don't condone, is languishing in jail, and yet this piece of, I'll keep my words as nice as I can, why was he not arrested and dragged off stage and thrown into jail like all the far-right people were after Southport? It's so appalling. Appalling.
Well, let me tell you a story, Jeremy, that I had brought to me today. So I'm in London now, but I was in my constituency of Runcorn and Helsby this morning. A Runcorn resident came in to tell me that his brother had been arrested at the same time as Lucy Connolly put out her misjudged tweet. This resident's brother had been arrested, charged, persuaded to plead guilty, and was sent straight to prison for 28 months. And he's still in prison, and all he did was put out some hurty words, not even as bad as what Lucy Connolly did. Now, he went straight to prison. He was held on remand and then straight to custody. I'm going to see him in prison next Friday to find out his story. But we all know what the story is. It's two-tier justice. And I cannot quite believe that I spent 20 years as a magistrate in the system in this country, which I was proud of when I joined. But what is going on now? And coming back to these hate acts, because that's what they are at Glastonbury, they are inciting hate, they are inciting violence, and worse than that, they are inciting killing, because we know that Kneecap, and I speak with some personal interest in this, obviously, Kneecap in the past have called for death to your MP, kill your MP. What did the Met Police do? Just recently, it's been announced they will take no action on that.
Well, now this is the interesting thing. So as I came to air, right, ranting and because the duplicity of, I mean, the BBC, I don't care what anybody says, the BBC, right, there will have been a run-through. I've done television for 30 years. There will have been a run-through. They will have known that the scenery at the back would have been run. Somebody, and all this, they haven't got a delay. It's not a national broadcaster, it's biased. But in the middle of the show, straight away, Donald Trump wakes up in America, Sarah, and immediately revokes their visas. And I think to myself, utterly brilliant. He says, I don't want the tirade of hate you did at Glastonbury in my country. Brilliant. Nothing from our bloody government. Then Avon and Somerset Constabulary, just for people who are just driving home or sitting somewhere hot, they've announced, the Avon and Somerset Constabulary, that following the completion of that assessment process, we've decided further inquiries are required and a criminal investigation into not only Bob Vylan but also Kneecap is underway. There's been a senior detective. They say there's absolutely no place in society for hate. Now, a lot of people went, that's great. Others are going, this will be another bloody whitewash, won't it? Like the one you're talking about.
It absolutely will. And why is it that Trump can go boom straight in there? Yeah. They're banned. They're not coming into this country. We will not have preachers of hate and violence in this country. Why can our Prime Minister not do that?
Oh, I know why. Sorry, now don't be unfair. Don't be unfair now. he had his eye off the ball because he was concentrating on world affairs, which is why he screwed up the welfare thing, because he's a very, very busy man, Sarah.
Well, you know, let's come on to the welfare benefits in a minute, but exactly. But you know what, Jeremy, even if he'd been at his desk here in Parliament, would he have banned these people? No. We have to have an investigation. Well, how many witnesses do you need? There were thousands and thousands of people at Glastonbury witnessing.
Somebody made a really good point. Somebody made a really good point to me just now when they said that, you know, quite rightly, when terrible things are done at football matches and they somehow managed to zoom in and get people and arrest them. Can you explain to me then why they're not doing that for the unwashed who chanted death to the IDF, which is in fact a hate crime? And I mean, listen, I was talking to Jonathan Sakadotti earlier on, Jewish broadcaster, friend of mine. I have Jewish friends I don't like. I asked him whether what Netanyahu's doing is not, you know, creating the right environment. I don't know. But what I really hate, and I don't know what you think about this, is I find all racism abhorrent. But why is it that anti-Semitism, is it because of the colour of your skin, is not seemingly deemed as repulsive and as heinous and as vile as racism against black people or brown people? Any form of racism. But that was blatant anti-Semitism, filmed and shown by the BBC, and I would say actively encouraged by Glastonbury. It's a disgrace.
It's an absolute disgrace, and this government will not call it out. On the one hand, you've got Wes Streeting saying on Trevor Phillips that the Israelis need to get their house in order. Then on the other hand, you've got Lisa Nandy saying this government feels very strongly about this and will take action. Well, take action. Ban them. You know, take away what were they doing on air anyway? But penalise the BBC. The BBC is paid for by the likes of you and me, who, you know, I still reluctantly pay my license.
Somebody said to me earlier, so what am I doing? I'm paying for propaganda, Hamas propaganda to be shown across the screen. I'm not paying it anymore. It's like this government. It's like this government, Sarah. We can sit and we can rant and we can rave. It will not be until the British public can vote them out. It will, and then for the BBC, who are so up their own backsides, they do not see it. Like the Labour Party do not see it. The British people are very strong and they have a voice. And what's going to happen is people will stop paying their licence fee, they'll stop supporting the BBC, and they will tell this Labour government in 4 years exactly what they think, because we're being treated like idiots and mugs.
I find it very hard to convince anybody who tells me that they are refusing to pay their licence fee why they should. Because when we are forced to see people that want to put Glastonbury on, want to watch the music at Glastonbury, and this is forced down your throats, this type of propaganda totally supported by the left-wing BBC that we know will always promote one side of the conflict and not the other. And I stand very firmly by what I've said before. Israel are doing the world a favour in what they are doing with their actions against Iran, their actions against these terrorist groups. They are doing us a favour. They are standing up and being brave against these groups, which only want to cause the West damage. They hate the West. They want to cause the West.
Listen, I agree with you completely, and people are tuning in. Why is it? I don't like what I see in Gaza, but war is not a nice thing. The reason Trump bombed Iran, for all the people who are doubters, is because the mad mullahs in Tehran have financed all those terrorist cells, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, for a long time. And the real sad, angry irony about what happened at Glastonbury is, on October the 7th, I was live on air when those planes flew into youngsters enjoying a music festival. And what happened, I've seen the footage, the atrocities. That doesn't mean that what's happening in Gaza is nice, but that's how this started. And all these people, these activists who jump on the back of something that's really important. I mean, I want to say to most of those middle-class idiots in that field in Glastonbury who need a wash, I don't think they even know what they're chanting about, which is why it inflames me. But I do believe in free speech. I don't like any sort of hate, but it has to be on both sides. That was inciting violence, and he should have been dragged off that stage and arrested. If not, then an hour later, no, we're going to have an investigation. Yeah, right.
But you know what? The message has to come from the government.
Yep.
The government needs to lead on this, needs to stop this happening. It can stop it happening, but it chooses not to. All of this rhetoric and all of these words that they come out with. Keir Starmer not taking a stance. Keir Starmer refusing to answer my questions in Parliament, and his team. I've asked 5 questions in Parliament in 7 weeks. Not one of them have been answered, Jeremy. Worse than that, they laugh at me, they jeer at me. Bring it on, because I will carry on standing up and asking these difficult questions that this government refuses to answer, because they will not be brave, they will not take a stance on these difficult issues and call out these people that we don't want in this country.
And the only reason they won't, and we know it, which is why this man is such an appalling Prime Minister, is he is terrified about losing certain votes of certain communities. And what that says is that he doesn't have a moral compass or a backbone. He doesn't have conviction. He spends so much time pandering to so many different people who he invited into his goddamn tent to win the election that now he cannot move. And let's talk about him. I mean, we spoke last week, the sort of rebellion that was going to happen tomorrow over the welfare benefits. I mean, I don't want to go into detail, but even I'm reading the Sunday Times. The man that leads this country, Sarah, says, and I quote, yes, I think I had my eyes on sort of worldwide, news, and I was very busy on the world stage, and I took my eye off the ball and got it wrong. And I'm like,
well, let's face it.
And you're the Prime Minister, are you? I'm not even joking. How bad does that sound?
It's awful. So let's just deal with the worldwide stage, where he's so big and important on the worldwide stage that the US didn't even think that it was worth telling him that they were going to bomb Iran, for goodness sake.
Have you not seen that? Well. Have you not seen the meme now where he stood with this? Brilliant, if that's what it's called. I don't know. He stood with, what's her name? The one from Sky. Come on, help me out. Beth, whatever.
Beth Rigby.
And they're standing on that bridge. She's got the green top. He's got the green tie, the thingy, and she's going, so you categorically are saying that a US, they're not going to bomb it. He goes there, and somebody's got a stealth bomber just flying past him like that.
I know. Do you know what? It's utterly embarrassing, and it shows utter incompetence. But on a national level, here at home, we have seen in such a short space of time, he's U-turned on the winter fuel allowance. He's U-turned on grooming gangs. He's now U-turning on the disability benefit reform bill. His justice stance is all over the place. I've come out very clearly on some of the stuff he's brought out with the David Gort review. It's a disgrace. He's putting women's safety at risk. It doesn't matter what topic you talk about. He is incompetent. He is U-turning. And I know that the British people have no confidence in our Prime Minister now. When that happens...
Do you think his party do, Sarah?
I don't think his party do at all. And I think when we see the vote on this disability reform bill, I still think that he's got trouble, because even with this latest amount of concessions that he's bringing in other words, people that have the deal they have can stay on it, but new applicants will find it tougher. Well, let's see what happens there, because reforms say the only way to tackle people that are claiming benefits that shouldn't claim benefits are to go back to face-to-face assessments. Whereas, of course, since COVID, that's all gone out the window, and nobody is doing face-to-face assessments.
I think the welfare problem is, 5 billion is not enough. It's really, really simple. I've said it for a long, long time. I said it to your boss over lunch once, right? Here's the thing. I love to be part of a society that says we're going to help those who are less fortunate than ourselves, right? That's great. But there are so many loopholes, and I can tell you that the British public are now saying, hold on a minute, so the thing that I pay in for, I can't get near, and yet you can come into this country and have your backside wiped in all the ways that we've described, and you've got that, and then you've got people taking advantage. And then you hear story after story, and no doubt you will hear it in your constituency of Runcorn and Helsby, of people saying, when I needed, a bit of help or a bit of support, I couldn't get jack. And that's unfortunately how so many people feel. But I wanted to bring you on, if I can, to two of the most outrageous stories I think I've... Well, it's not outrageous. We do it every day on this bloody station, don't we? An Albanian burglar with almost 50 convictions has been allowed to stay in the UK after a judge found his crimes not extreme enough. Zenal Beshi, a serious and prolific offender who spent 6 years in jail, Sarah, for robbery, theft and false imprisonment, in brackets, that's kidnapping, isn't it? And he forgot to tell the immigration tribunal, and they basically said he's quite a nice man. You could say they're not really serious crimes. Staying.
It's an absolute disgrace. The British people are up in arms, and the British people are already getting to the point where enough is enough. You know, this is making a mockery of our justice system. How is it that there's such an industry of left-wing human rights woke lawyers defending these people, allowing this sort of decision to be made? And I'll tell you what, if I become Justice Secretary, this type of thing will not be happening.
Oh, she's told us what job she's going to get. There you are, Justice Secretary. Brilliant.
No, I didn't tell you that, Jeremy. I just said if I was Justice Secretary, I would put a stop to this type of nonsense, because we should be the proudest, we should be representing the proudest judicial system in the world. That's why I became a magistrate 20 years ago.
I was going to ask you.
What is happening to it?
Well, I was going to ask you, actually, because you've talked about that quite a lot. And when you see things like the Albanian, and then the other story today, this revolting Abdul Rauf in Rochdale, the leader of that notorious Rochdale rape gangs, has had £285,000 from the British taxpayer. It's building a house in his family's home in Pakistan whilst using our money to fight deportation. It should have been deported 10 years ago. When you were a magistrate, right, did you start to see this creeping in? Woke lawyers using whatever they could to charge £800 an hour that the taxpayer paid to allow people who are basically not good enough to stay in our country. Did you see it happening in front of your very eyes?
To give you a great example, in fact, it was just towards the end of my time as a magistrate, I had an organised crime gang in, 4 Romanian men. They were reaping havoc across the northwest. It was in Chester Crown Court, Chester Magistrates Court, I should say. And do you know what I did? I sent them all straight to custody, and I was told by the legal clerk that, oh, you can't really do that, Mum, because they haven't got a criminal record. You can't really send people to prison without a criminal record, you know, straight off like that, without you know, some community order. This is an organised crime gang. So do you know what I did, Jeremy? Straight into custody, and everybody was like, ooh, you know, what's she done? You've got to be that hard. You've got to be brave. I don't care if that was appealed. It never was appealed, by the way, because that was a clear-cut organised crime gang, and people need to be tougher. And how ironic that this Labour government, in that David Gaunt review I referred to earlier, are advocating more community rehabilitation.
Oh, he's wet anyway, Gaunt. He's as wet as anything.
He's wet. And yet the likes of Lucy Connolly and my constituent that I spoke to you about earlier have gone to prison for 28 months, 31 months. What is happening? There's no rehabilitation offered there.
That's the point. That's why people, this is why I keep saying it to anybody and everybody, that's why people's frustration is growing. Not that there seems to be duplicity. There seems to be 2 different ways of handling this. I repeat many times, I don't condone what Lucy put. It was out of anger. It was stupid. She took it down. I can tell you that, going back to what we started, Bob Vylan, whatever his name is, that was premeditated, and I very much expect the BBC knew it was coming, that Glastonbury knew it was coming. There's probably some of them at Glastonbury are happy with the publicity. But if you're going to do it for one, I really think... But just final question, do you... I've heard Nigel say, I'd love your take on this. For me, all these left-wing lawyers grab the ECHR and they go, oh, well, the only 2 countries that don't belong to the ECHR are Belarus and Russia. If we left, we'd look absolutely dreadful. It was created by Churchill. Yes, 70 years ago. It is defunct, and it is being used to have people stay here who shouldn't. Tell me, if you get in on day one, that is gone, irrespective of the blob or the rest of the world. That's gone, right?
It's gone. I've made it very clear. Reforms policy, we will come out of the ECHR. We will stop this huge industry of woke left-wing lawyers defending these people, allowing them to stay in this country. We have to get tough. And you know what, Jeremy? We have the will of the British people behind us. So good to have you on. I'm so glad you came back. I thought it was only for Peter Cardwell. Really great. Never mind taking Nigel to lunch. What about taking me to lunch, Jeremy? It's on. This is going to be. I'll ring you after the show. That sounds a bit forward. I will take you to lunch, Sarah Pochin. Thank you so much indeed. I've got to buy lunch now. I've gone a bit red there, right? Sarah Pochin, Reform UK, Runcorn and Helsby.